Hey guys, it's the Joker here, back to you today with another video. And today I wanted to take the time to talk about the fact that I really wish and do believe that Eminem should have released his Marshall Mathers LP album on November 23 in the year 1999, the same exact year that he released his Slim Shady LP album that he should have released on January 1 of 1999, and then exactly 10 whole months later, he should have released, in my opinion, at least, his Marshall Mathers LP album. And the reason why I wish and believe that Eminem should have released two albums in 1 year is because that's exactly what the rapper DMX himself did in the year of 1998, just 1 year earlier. DMX in the year 1998, who's another one of my favorite rappers, released It's Dark and Hell is Hot in the year 1998, and also Flesh of My Flesh and Blood of My Blood. And so I think it would have been really cool and awesome if Eminem himself had done exactly the same, as in release two rap albums within the same year. The same exact year. First, his Slim Shady LP album, which should have been released at the very latest on January 1 of 1999, and then 10 months later, which I think would have been more than enough time and just plenty of time to have made and released another album, the Marshall Mathers LP, releasing that on November 23 in the same year of 1999 at the age of 27 years old. Because he turned 27 the same year he released his Slim Shady LP album, but he didn't turn 27 until October 17 of 1999. And so on November 23 of 1999, I feel like he could have and should have released his Marshall Mathers LP album. I also wish and do believe that he should have made that album of his longer, just like I do his Slim Shady LP album. And on his Marshall Mathers LP album, I really wish and do believe that Eminem should have put and released the unreleased Mom skit and Mom song, but would have combined the Mom skit and song together, which are two unreleased Marshall Mathers LP songs that you cannot hear on YouTube because they're unreleased. They're obviously still sitting somewhere in Eminem's rap studio and just rotting away, and will most likely never see the light of day, if anything. But anyways, I would have loved it more than anything if Eminem would have put and released the unreleased Mom skit and song and would have combined them together, so that way they could have just been one track, so that way they would not have had to be like separated, so he could have kept his Marshall Mathers LP album to just obviously 4 skits, limited to 4 skits max, just like he does and has. And then also definitely release the other unreleased Marshall Mathers LP song, Dear Ronnie, which was going to be a song where Eminem was going to pay tribute and honor to his uncle, whose name was Ronnie, who took his life in like the year 1990 or 1991, sadly. That it's really heartbreaking, especially knowing and considering the fact that Ronnie and Eminem were super close. They were like extremely tight. I mean, Eminem was his nephew after all. And I mean, they were like the best of friends. And what's even also interesting about that is Ronnie was the one who actually introduced Eminem to rap music. And they were the same age, is another thing to know. They were the exact same age. They were both born in 1972. And so in like 1991, Ronnie would have only been like 19 years old or something when he took his life, when he committed suicide, tragically. But anyways, Ronnie, when he was still alive a very long time ago, he had like bought Eminem like this rap record from like the 80s. Of course, this would have been like in the 80s when Ronnie first introduced Eminem to rap music, and Eminem was 14 when he first got introduced to rap music. And it's kind of funny because I was the same age when I first discovered Eminem. I was 14 years old in 2011. So Eminem and I have that in common, which I think is pretty cool and sweet. Like, he was only 14 years old when he was first introduced to rap music because of his uncle Ronnie. And I was first introduced to rap music because one of my older sisters downloaded some of her music onto my iPod many years ago in 2011. And one of the very first rap songs I heard, and Eminem rap songs, was Not Afraid. And I like immediately and instantly fell in love with that song, and I just became hooked right away and just obsessed with it. And then the same year, I also listened to songs like Spacebound and No Love featuring Lil Wayne, and of course and obviously Love the Way You Lie featuring Rihanna. And I loved all of them. And then the following year in 2012, when I was 15, I started to discover and listen to older Eminem songs, such as like Slim Shady LP Eminem songs, Marshall Mathers LP Eminem songs, Eminem Show Eminem songs, Encore, and so on and so forth. But yeah, I loved that shit. Just loved it. But anyways, so yeah, he was going to originally have a song called Dear Ronnie. And what sucks about that is the only reason that he wasn't able to release that unreleased Marshall Mathers LP song on his Marshall Mathers LP album, which in my opinion should have came out the same year his Slim Shady LP album came out, but 10 months later, to at least have a certain amount of time, a certain amount of gap between each of those two albums of his. And I feel like 10 months would be, plenty and like more than enough. But anyways, the reason why he wasn't able to release his unreleased Marshall Mathers LP song, Dear Ronnie, is because Ronnie's family threatened to sue Eminem if he would have went ahead and released that song on his Marshall Mathers LP album, because they didn't want, apparently, the public to know about like how Ronnie committed suicide, or I guess more in depth and detail of how Ronnie did it. But I think that's just heartbreaking and crushing and cruel and not fair, because here's the thing. I find it ridiculous that Eminem himself didn't have a say in it, because after all, Eminem was also a part of Ronnie's family. Eminem was his nephew. That makes Eminem also a part of his family. And also, not to mention, they were like the best of friends. And it was also Ronnie who introduced Eminem to rap music in the first place. If it weren't for Ronnie, buying a record, whatever rap record it was, and showing it to Eminem when Eminem was 14 and they were the same age, Eminem would have most likely never have gotten into rap music. And so he would have been less likely to have became a famous rapper if that would have happened, and if that would have been the case. If Ronnie would have never been, interested in buying a rap record in the 1980s and then like giving it to Eminem or showing it to him, then Eminem would have had less likely of a chance of not only getting into rap music and getting addicted to it and obsessed with it and loving it to the point that he himself wanted to start rapping. So ultimately, Eminem has Ronnie to thank for pretty much making him a rapper, for getting him when he was young and as a teenager, like getting interested in rap music and rap culture. And, I know, even though obviously none of us will ever hear it and it will most likely never see the light of day. But I know for a fact, an all-around fact, that Eminem's unreleased Marshall Mathers LP song and track, Dear Ronnie, would have been one beautiful, melancholy, sad, heartbreaking, crushing, tragic rap song. It would have been one of the greatest and best rap songs that not only Eminem himself would have released to the public if he would have been able to and if he would have been allowed, but it would have been one of the best and greatest sad rap songs in the history of rap music in general. And I myself, as an Eminem stan, would have been highly interested and intrigued and excited to have heard that song, that unreleased song, like out of any of the unreleased Eminem songs. That's probably one of like the most popular unreleased songs that many people still know about, but will just never be able to hear. And honestly, I just think it's fucked up on Ronnie's family that they would threaten to sue Eminem if he would have went ahead and released that song on his Marshall Mathers LP album. Because what's really shitty about that is the fact that Eminem himself had to, pay for studio time and pay for the beat to use to make that song. He had to spend time and effort to make that song together, to put it together, to pay for the studio time, to pay for the beat that he used for that song. And then he finds out that, oh, I can't release it. I'm not allowed because otherwise Ronnie's family will sue me because they're threatening to sue me. And Eminem, when he first came out and first became a rapper in his earlier career, he was sued by many people, his mom, his ex-wife, even other people as well. Like, there was this guy who he, pistol whipped because he saw this one guy at a club flirting with his wife, Kim, his ex-wife, Kim, and it made him lose his mind when he was young and in his 20s, and he started pistol whipping the guy, and that same guy sued Eminem. He didn't really get that much money, but he got some, and Eminem could have gotten to jail, and he would have had his rap career ruined and in the trash if that would have happened. But thankfully, the judge was an Eminem fan. But it's like, Eminem had already been sued many times, and each of those times he didn't really have to pay that much money, and some of the people who sued him even lost. So it's like, why would Ronnie's family suing Eminem have been any different? Why would that, have made it so that Eminem would have not released that song, or would have been too scared or terrified or worried to release that song on his Marshall Mathers LP album because he would have been sued then by Ronnie's family, such as Ronnie's mom, dad, brothers, sisters, or whatever, or grandparents or aunts or uncles or whatever. And I just think it sucks because Eminem was a part of Ronnie's family too. I just think it's retarded that Eminem himself didn't have a say in what would have happened. It just doesn't make any logical sense. And if I would have been Eminem, I would have been like this. I would have been pretty pissed. I would have said to Ronnie's family, I would have been like, I spent time and money putting this song and track together. And now you're telling me that I can't release it and put it on my Marshall Mathers LP album because you'll threaten to sue me. And, I'm a part of Ronnie's family too. Don't I have a say in what happens? He was my uncle. I was his nephew. Or no, I am his nephew because he wouldn't have been dead. He was my uncle. I'm his nephew, and we were the best of friends. It was Ronnie who got me into rap music in the first place. It was Ronnie who introduced me to rap music. And if it wouldn't have been for him, I would have been less likely to have been, interested in rap music or ever discovered it for that matter. And if that would have happened, I would have been less likely to have became a famous rapper. So ultimately, I have him to thank for it. And, this is a song where I want to pay honor and tribute to him. It's a sorrowful song, but it's a beautiful song because I loved, cared about, and respected and was super close to my uncle Ronnie. That's what I would have said if I would have been Eminem. And I just think it's absolute bullshit that, Eminem didn't at least try to do something like that. That he didn't try to stand up for himself or defend himself or anything against Ronnie's family, who just were being straight up cruel and unfair by threatening to sue him if he would have gone along and released that unreleased Marshall Mathers LP song, Dear Ronnie. So far, I wish that Eminem would have added or included the unreleased Mom skit as well as Mom's song, combined them together so that they could have just been one track instead of being separated, so that he could have kept his amount of skits on his Marshall Mathers LP album to just 4 skits. And also, another thing, I would have been highly intrigued and interested in listening to and hearing what the unreleased Mom skit and song would have sounded like and would have been like. What would the beat have sounded like? What would the verses have been like? What would the hook have been like? And also, what would Eminem have rapped about in that song? It was going to be a rap song about his mom, and it was just going to be titled Mom. And what would the Mom skit have sounded like? And same thing with his unreleased Marshall Mathers LP song, Dear Ronnie. What would the beat have sounded like? What would the verses have sounded like? What would the hook have been? All these things I can only ask myself, knowing that these songs or skits or whatever will never see the light of day. And ever since the year 2000 have been just rotting away, not literally, but metaphorically speaking, rotting away in Eminem's rap studio somewhere. Even though he spent time and money to make them, and then he didn't even end up releasing them. And that just makes it all the more heartbreaking and crushing. But anyways, I also wish that Eminem would have made and released, of course, and obviously, a deluxe edition of his Marshall Mathers LP album. And on his deluxe edition of his Marshall Mathers LP album, hypothetically speaking, if he would have made and released one, as he definitely should have, and I would have wanted him to have included these 4 songs, and in this order being Our House featuring Fred Durst, which you can actually listen to on YouTube. That is one of the left out, scrapped Marshall Mathers LP Eminem songs that was recorded in 1999. I will have to warn you, though, the quality is pretty bad. I mean, if the YouTube video is still up, there is a higher quality version of that song, but ultimately it doesn't have that good of quality because it was never officially released. So of course it's not going to sound that good, but you can still hear the lyrics. You can still hear what the words were and would have been, and the hook and everything in it. And it's a great song, and it's really unfortunate that it didn't, at least make it on to a deluxe edition of that album of his, which just really pisses me the fuck off. But anyways, then other than that, I would have wanted Eminem to have put his song The Kids on the deluxe edition, or on a deluxe edition of his Marshall Mathers LP album. And what's funny and interesting about the song The Kids, he did release that song on a limited edition of his Marshall Mathers LP album, which was cool and better than nothing, but it would have definitely been better and greater had he released that song on a deluxe edition, which would have been ultimately much better and greater than just a limited edition. But sadly, that didn't happen because deluxe editions of rap albums weren't a thing until the late 2000s and early 2010s, which I think is fucking retarded. But anyways, and then the third rap song that I would have wanted to be on a deluxe edition of Eminem's Marshall Mathers LP album be the unreleased Marshall Mathers LP song Violence to have been the third song on a deluxe edition of Eminem's Marshall Mathers LP album. And what's interesting about the unreleased song Violence off of Eminem's Marshall Mathers LP album is Big Proof actually mentions that unreleased song on D12's first album Devil's Night in 2001, which I think is pretty interesting, to say the least. I can't remember what song Big Proof mentioned it on, but there's this song where there's a part where Proof raps like violence, 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 violence. I can't remember which song off of Devil's Night that Big Proof raps that, but he was saying that to reference that unreleased Marshall Mathers LP song, which makes it even more sad. And then last but not least, I would have wanted Eminem to release another unreleased Marshall Mathers LP song, being a song that was going to be called Angry Blonde, to have been the fourth song on a deluxe edition of Eminem's Marshall Mathers LP album. And what's even kind of funny and interesting about that unreleased song is in the early 2000s, there actually was a book called Angry Blonde. And in that book, in case you have it, I personally never have, but I would definitely love to buy it and get it someday. And hopefully it's like still around in like a new version of it. I don't mean a new edition, but like hopefully like there's still some new copies somewhere online. I hope there is, because in that book, you can actually read about a lot of unreleased Eminem songs that didn't make it on like his Slim Shady LP album or his Marshall Mathers LP album. I mean, hell, he even had like unreleased songs on his Infinite album and even his Slim Shady EP. So it's pretty interesting. So I would definitely love to buy and get that book just for that reason alone. But one of the unreleased Marshall Mathers LP songs was going to be called Angry Blonde, just like the book is called. And the book mentions that song too. And, you know, it could have been released on a deluxe edition of his Marshall Mathers LP album, and it should have. There's no reason why it shouldn't have. And again, like I wish, just like I said in my previous video about the fact that Eminem's Slim Shady LP album at the very latest should have came out on January 1 of 1999. And in that video, I talked about how, you know, I wish and believe that Eminem should have popularized the whole idea of making and releasing deluxe editions of rap albums since his Slim Shady LP album. Even though that they weren't really around or weren't really a thing, he could have been the rapper to pave the way, to make them a thing, to popularize that. He could have, you know, encouraged other rappers to start doing the same. And in the late 90s and early 2000s, that would have been just really, really dope. And I wish he would have done that, but sadly he didn't. And to just throw one extra thing in this video, I also wish that Eminem's Marshall Mathers LP album would have included 4 music videos, since he only has 3, which to me doesn't make that much sense, since his Slim Shady LP album had 4 music videos made and released for that album of his, but his Marshall Mathers LP album only has 3. And, you know, obviously the deluxe edition cover of his Marshall Mathers LP album could be different than the standard edition cover of his Marshall Mathers LP album. And, you know, the deluxe edition could have been the cover that where he's like sitting on the doorstep of his childhood home. The standard edition cover, obviously the cover that he took when he went to Amsterdam. And I think that cover is honestly cooler, in my opinion. But I love the cover where he's sitting on the doorstep of his childhood home, only because for the Marshall Mathers LP2 sequel, he shows a photo of his house. So with the standard, with the original cover of his Marshall Mathers LP album, it doesn't go with his Marshall Mathers LP2 album cover. But anyways, that's pretty much all I wanted to say in today's video. Let me know what you all think in the comment section down below. I'm out.